Sears is a fascinating American story. Story of entrepreneurial spirit, innovation, expansion, and then arrogance, pride, and destruction. But we're getting to all that. Richard Sears was born into a wealthy family, but his dad lost the family fortune in stock speculation. So young Richard went to work for the railroad. He heard through the grapevine about a wholesale shipment of watches that were flatly rejected by the retailer. Didn't want anything to do with them. So Sears piped up and said, I'll buy them. And that negated the cost of having to ship the watches back to the wholesaler. So they sold it to him. He sold every one of these watches at a small profit. And a light bulb went off in his head and he thought, well, maybe, there's a future in this. Roebuck came on board. It used to be Sears, Roebuck and Company. And Mr. Roebuck came on board. He was the tinkerer, kind of the inventor, and he would fix the watches. If you had a problem with a Sears watch, simply ship it back and we'll give it to Roebuck and he'll fix it. Roebuck was not with the Sears company long. He sold his interest. I can't remember how many years, but it doesn't matter. But he didn't fade into obscurity. He eventually perfected and made famous the now famous and collectible Woodstock typewriter. It wasn't long. Sears had expanded into jewelry, eyeglasses, spectacles. He went into housewares, clothing for both men and women, which was rather innovative at the time. Women sewed their own clothes at this time. And somewhere in here we got to enter a man named Robert Wood. And Mr. Wood is a fascinating American. A pretty good book on all this. I'm guessing it's pretty good. It's the only one I've read on the subject, but an interesting book. It kept me reading through. It's called Shaping an American Institution, and it's written by James Worthy. And it talks about Mr. Wood. He got his start in the military and quickly ascended the ranks. He was a pretty bright guy, especially in the field of logistics, shipping, transporting, figuring out the intricacies of deliveries. And in World War I, he really shined, keeping the forces fed. You got to feed them, turns out. And by the end of World War I, he was the transportation director of the entire American Expeditionary Forces in France. So World War I ends, and Mr. Wood ends up becoming, he became an employee, a higher level employee of Montgomery Ward, another major U.S. retailer at the time. Ward and Sears were always kind of combatants. They were rivals in the retail industry. And Wood ends up becoming the VP of Montgomery Ward. Something in the 1920s pissed him off. I can't remember what it was. It's in this book. But he got ticked. And he resigned, effective immediately. Well, Mr. Wood, now an employee of Sears, quickly ascended the ranks, and he became president of Sears from 1928 to 1954. And even after 54, basically clear up until his death in the 60s, he sat on the board and stuff. He was a major player in that company. Another big thing that Wood brought on board was the shift. It was a railroad. It was a mail order catalog. They shipped out the Sears catalog primarily targeted to rural folks and farmers, because all they had at the time was the general store with incredibly high prices, very limited selection, and that was all you had. You lived out in the boonies on a farm, and you went to the general store when you needed something, and what they had is what you got at the prices they asked. There was really no competition. And Sears changed all that with their catalogs. You picked out what you wanted, you sent off the little coupon, they shipped it on trains, and you went and picked it up, usually at a steeply discounted price from what you'd pay at the general store. Wood shifted the focus from rural catalog purchases to urban department stores. And initially, there was major pushback from the company. They did not want to do this in any way, shape, or form because the mail order industry was working to great success. In 1933, they came out with the Sears Wish Book, which was like an additional holiday type. It came out in December-ish, maybe November, And this was all a whole bunch of extra purchases you could make now, you know, for the Christmas giving spirit. Massive success. Sears were masters at de-emphasizing the latest fashion trend, and they emphasized durable, reliable clothing and footwear. I mean, they had branched into this time. In 1908 and clear up to 1940, you could buy a Sears kit home. You bought the whole home. I'm talking from nails, studs, faucets, pipes, paint colors, carpeting, drapes. You could get furniture through Sears to put in your new Sears home. And from modern perspective, you know, we kind of think like IKEA, or, you know, how great could that be? These homes were beautiful. And they were very affordable. Well, as homes go at the time, they were quite affordable. A lot of them still exist to this day, and they are beautiful homes. Immaculate woodwork, durable, reliable. And then, of course, you could buy your Sears paint to paint it with. Sears appliances. They had the Kenmore. Man, them old Kenmore appliances would last roughly about 3/4 of forever. Quality products at an affordable price. That was Sears. In 1962, Sears sold more plows than John Deere. And the government jumped in and was, you know, we got to bust up the monopoly here. This is getting a bit much. Because, you know, government. Allstate Insurance, they're still around today. That came from Bob Wood and Sears. That was a subsidy. But they created it. By the 1970s, Sears hit the pinnacle. They were the largest retailer in the world, bar none. They built the 110-story Sears Tower in Chicago in 1974. Massive building. And I don't know that they ever even filled that up. It was, the writing was on the wall for Sears. That was, at the time, the world's tallest building. And it is considered the one of the 7 wonders of the modern world. You have to understand the significance of Sears in modern retailing. I mean, we had the advent of the automobile that came on board, so now they could put these stores, you know, kind of here and there. Initially, they were focused kind of around the mail order catalog distribution warehouses, which I thought was pretty smart. Well, with the advent of the automobile, now they could put them, well, basically anywhere you could get with a car. But they had abundant free parking, which was kind of an anomaly at the time in the retail sector. They had open floor plans. That was a new thing. In the 1930s, they got air conditioning. So now you could shop in comfort. And you could inspect your own. You didn't have to rely on a wait person to come help you and be right with you, sir. It wasn't any of that. They took away the division of departments. It was an open floor plan. Now, all these things were really modern in retailing, and Sears pioneered all of that. By the 1980s, now the Sears Tower had been built, and they're getting a little big for their britches. Dean Witter Investment Firms, that was Sears. Coldwell Banker, that was Sears Real Estate. That was 1981. 1985, maybe you've heard of Discover Credit Card. That was Sears. The aforementioned Allstate Insurance, that was Sears. Every one of these ventures that they got into that was not retail and products to the consumer took the executives' focus off of retail. And what about this? Maybe we could make some money in this. And pretty soon your attention is all over the place and the retail side of it. And there happened to be a little company from Bentonville, Arkansas named Walmart that since the late 60s, just piece by piece, incrementally, was gaining ground. By 1988, they had Sears sold the Sears Tower. It was a failure. They couldn't fill it up. It was too massive. Now, I don't know if this part is true. I had heard stories. I was a former employee of Walmart. And I heard stories working there that the executives in Sears in that giant tower were buying like $40,000 paintings to hang on the wall because, hey, we're the biggest retailer in the world, you know? Let's get some art going in here. When the first that I worked for Walmart, they really stressed that. They really stressed, let's not get too big for our britches. Every paper clip, every cardboard box, that costs the company money. And here Sears was spending it to their own demise, left and right, and let's get some fancy furniture. And oddly enough, by the time I left Walmart around 2014, they were doing the exact same thing. Getting a little fancy, a little big for the britches. The trouble with that is, pride comes before destruction, and a haughty spirit before a fall. By the mid to late 90s, the internet is becoming a thing with the general populace now. And you would think, I would have thought, now is Sears' time to shine. I mean, they invented this stuff. They plowed the road, man. There should be nobody better. And I'm telling you, from day one, the Sears online service looked like something that I would create if I created online services, as you might be able to tell from these here videos. I mean, it was just a debacle from day one. It never, I mean, you think Amazon today, that's the modern equivalent of Sears in their heyday. In the 19-teens, 20s, 30s, 40s, they started the shift to the in-person retail store, but they were still doing the catalog. I can't remember when they quit the catalog. I want to say like 1990. It just wasn't, there wasn't enough there. But you would think, I would think, that by the time, you know, online, here we go, Sears, baby. Enter a man named Eddie Lampert. Oh, Fast Eddie. I mean, he made covers of magazines. He was the business guru. He was the entrepreneur that was just a whiz-bang at making money. Well, he made money for himself. He gutted numerous American companies. And it just so happened he had a large position in commercial real estate. So when these companies went belly up because he ruined them, guess who stepped in to buy the properties? Well, Eddie Lampert did. Did the exact same thing with Sears. Then he's selling off Kenmore because they're hemorrhaging, you know, cash. They need money. They got debt piled up upon debt. I thought you were the savior, Mr. Lampert. What's with all the debt? He sold off Craftsman. They're owned by Stanley Black & Decker now. And just, man, it's right on the other side of this camera. I have a Craftsman table saw from 1958. Still runs like a champ. A Craftsman tool now, they're just absolute junk. It's not Sears anymore, and it hasn't been probably since the mid-90s. I mean, just horrible. It's in name only. And we see that a lot. Now, everything's kind of merging into these bigger corporations. Well, pretty soon they're going to run everything. I mean, we're almost kind of there. But getting back to Sears, Eddie Lampert trashed that company, gutted it. Thousands, tens of thousands, and then even hundreds of thousands of jobs gone. And Sears is done. I don't know if they have a physical store still open. If they do, it's like in the 20s, maybe 3. I don't really know. I just know that company is done. Kmart tried a merger. Kmart was a failing entity to begin with, so when you buy a failing entity and you are already a failing entity, you're going to fail. The stock price was like $150 there for about 3 days. I don't know. I don't even know if you can buy Sears stock now. The company's gone. Too big for your britches. And that's probably the lesson that we take out of this. And you're going to see it with Walmart too. Amazon's doing away with Walmart. Who will do away with Amazon? I don't know. Somebody. Because sooner or later, they always seem to get too big for their britches. And that's the takeaway lesson. Arrogance, pride, that attitude of we can't fail. I mean, look at us. Look how great we are. Let me know how that works out for you. Hey, I appreciate you watching. If you want to do the thing, I appreciate that. And I do appreciate your time. We'll see you next time.